Chair, you are live.
Thank you. Quorum being present, this meeting of the Annapolis Historic Preservation Commission shall come to order. This commission operates pursuant to the land use article of the annotated code of the state of Maryland. Local authority for the commission is derived from the municipal code of the city of Annapolis, chapter 21, section 56. The purpose of the HPC is to preserve and promote the preservation and appreciation of historic sites, structures, and districts. Requirements for serving on the commission are detailed in chapter 21, section 8.06. The HPC operates pursuant to the state of Maryland 1977 Open Meetings Act, and therefore no pending application shall be discussed between or amongst commissioners outside of the public hearing to determine the disposition of the application. Roll call. Bill Williams. Here. Leslie Xavier.
Here.
Brendan Greeley.
Here.
And I'm Kevin Smith, chairman. Kim Golder, Kim Finch, and Will Scott are out tonight. And we also have John Tower, our chief of historic preservation, and Kim Consoli, our recorder. John,
yes.
The next on the agenda is announcements.
Let me say that I am interested in developing a hybrid meeting for us, which will make it easier for commissioners who cannot be physically present to participate in the public hearing meetings, which are in person. So working on that, and I think that it's necessary and important.
I like the sound of that. I would think that's just using technology to create better participation sounds great to me. Anything else, John?
No, we'll keep it short tonight.
Great. The next item on the agenda is approval of draft minutes from June 11th. Can I get a motion to approve?
Motion to approve, sorry.
Second the motion.
Second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous to approve the minutes of June 11th. All right, next time on the agenda, John, is new violations and status of active violations.
The violations that we're working on right now are actually fairly minor, not worth taking time from this meeting. And I would say that staff is focused and working through.
Great. Thank you, John, for that. The next item is the consent docket. I don't think we have any applications that qualify for the consent docket, so we can move on to new business. We have 2 applications and then 1 pre-application and other business later. So the next part is we need to administer an oath to those who will be testifying. We have, it's a tradition of the commission to administer the oath required in order to testify in mass. This includes all applicants, staff, consultants, professionals, and any member of the general public seeking to enter into the record their comments regarding any of the applications, which will be heard at this hearing. So Julian, can you promote everyone so they can be sworn in? All right, if those of you who wish to testify tonight, please raise your right hand. And do you affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimonies given and the statements you shall make are true to the best of your information, knowledge, and belief? Please respond by stating I do.
I do.
Thank you. So we'll go to the first item on our agenda. So that's 80 Compromise Street, from Marshall Harris and Hammond Wilson. Julian, if you can leave those participants promoted so they can provide their presentation.
Okay, will do.
Great. I'm Andrew Fishback with Hammond Wilson Architects. I'm a principal partner there, and we also have Marshall Harris, the project architect.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
So today we want to present our proposed renovations, exterior renovations to 80 Compromise Street at Annapolis Waterfront Hotel for the Atlas Group, formerly known or currently known as the Pussers Restaurant. And we've come to the board before and presented this as a two-story concept. We've taken that back and we're going to present in two phases. The first phase includes these renovations before you on the exterior and interior of the restaurant. Just so to give you some background, of course, here's some existing images of the Pusser space today on the lower level, below the garage level along the waterfront. You can see its current form and roof forms, where we're proposing to change those. It's along the entire front of Ego Alley, indicated by the blue overhangs. And
Andrew, are you trying to share your?
Yeah, is it not? Can you not see it?
I don't see it. I don't know if other people
Don't have anything.
And
Stand
you
by.
on another computer as well?
Yep.
Is that where you're sharing from?
Yeah.
Yeah, it needs to come forward. So, yeah, accept that, and then just make sure you kill all your audio on that one.
Yep. That should be. And here we go. You should see it.
There you go. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
There we go.
Yep. So here's some existing pictures that we're the community's most familiar with, I'm sure, in its existing form along Spot Creek, the entire. Can you see my cursor?
Yes.
Great. Skip those. There's some existing pictures. So here's the existing second floor plan you're familiar with. Is mostly related to hotel and not part of this application, with the exception of some pieces on the front. So initially, run through the interior quickly so you have an understanding of what kind of the two concepts are that we're presenting. So the space will be, this is the existing space in the demolition plan of what we're planning to remove, which is everything within the white area dash lines, and then the gray area is the existing hotel that's not part of the scope. On the second floor, there's some limited work that we're going to do with this existing storage and the parapet along the front, in addition, the canopy along the waterfront side. This shows kind of a better understanding of the elevation of what we're planning to do. So the exterior skin gets removed and replaced. The second floor, this curved roof gets removed. And again, we get new windows, canopy structure in the bar all get removed and updated. And on the inside, this is what we're planning to do. So the hallway, the entrance gets revised and modernized. The front, or not really modernized, but cleaned up, and we moved some fenestration around. The corridor to the restaurant space, it gets refreshed with 2 bathrooms, updated finishes and materials, and then we break in the space into 2 restaurant spaces, restaurant space A and B gets a new kitchen behind the existing, underneath the existing garage behind the front exterior bar along the waterfront. Along the exterior, we introduced a new fenestration and doors and windows along the entire facade, the 2 restaurants, and a new exterior skin, a combination of stucco and Ipe rain screen material. The current canopy gets reshaped and broken down into 3 separate distinct roof forms with a similar pitch that's there today, but was reduced in scale, which was a comment from our pre-application meeting a few months ago. On the second floor, we removed the second floor storage and curved roofed, and we install a new railing system along the entire parapet of the front waterfront side. The existing stairs to the second floor remain. The roof tent structure on the roof and shed remain the same. The chimney remains, and then we also introduce a screened area to conceal the rooftop equipment for the new kitchen on the existing parking deck that matches the existing fence along the parking here and here as well. So this shows the new facade on the waterfront side. Portion of it in front of Concept A is vertical rain screen Ipe, similar to what the yacht club has, that invokes sort of a nautical feel. And then on the right hand side, behind the bar and along the bar is a white stucco material that reinforces the look and feel of the overall hotel, and breaks up the Ipe. And then we break down the current existing canopy into 3 smaller wood structures. This is a section of how that wood structure and what it looks like relative to the new parapet as well. So you can see the parking level and second floor space. We lower the parapet slightly, and we add in a metal cable rail system, and then we have a standing seam metal roof with a wood heavy timber structure that supports it, and then a backdrop behind the bar would be a smooth stucco finish. The other kind of section illustrates the elements at the new windows and doors in Concept A, which we have a aluminum structure with wood slats that helps some early morning sun protection inside, and also show kind of our new fenestration patterns for the windows and doors. And then these 3 images kind of reinforce those elevations and show our vertical Ipe rain screen, our aluminum sun shades, our new railing system that goes the entire length of the facade along Ego Alley, our white stucco finish along the back on Concept B, and we have the garage, and then our bar element, and then the breakdown of the roof canopies to bring the scale down. As in the view looking the other direction, we've introduced some green elements and plantings to help soften the facade. Wood elements really help it relate to the other nautical buildings along Ego Alley. And just some other views, and shows the scale of the elements, which we think is a great improvement to the existing conditions there today. And this shows kind of the breakdown of the canopy system. It breaks up the mass and scale. You can see the wood elements, which would be all Douglas fir, heavy timber. And so that's our presentation. I can go into the specifications of the materials if you like a little further. But maybe we just start from there. That works.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. I appreciate you going through that. Do we have any clarifying questions from the commissioners?
Kevin?
Yeah, Bill, sorry, I didn't see your hand. I had to
Okay.
change screens. Go ahead, Bill.
The Douglas fir that you're putting up there, are we painting it, staining it? I'm sorry, I may have missed the finishing process on that.
Yeah, we like to keep it. We'll stain it, but it'll be a clear stain, natural stain.
So the wood's going to slowly discolor, or with When you say it's a natural stain, but
Yeah, so we'd coat it, and the idea is that we would maintain that portion of the restaurant. I mean, it would be covered, but we would like a sealer on it to keep it
Mhm.
kind of be a contrast to the Ipe, which we're going to lit now, right?
right. So it's going to have sort of the new wood appearance.
Yes, it would.
Okay. Thank you.
Brendan, do you have a clarifying question?
Brendan, you're mute.
Sorry about that. Yeah, will there be any signage or branding for the new restaurant that's visible from the dock?
Most likely will be, but that would be submitted under a separate sign
Okay.
permit.
All right, Leslie, do you have any questions?
Yeah. So, it looks as though boats are going to be permitted to pull up there. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Similar to how it operates today with Passers.
And has this been approved by the harbor master?
I don't know if that would need approval, but we would definitely seek it if it needed to be.
No, because there is a lot of traffic out there during the summer. It's just a question. So
Yeah, no, I don't. It has not yet, to my knowledge, and I'm not sure if it does or not. But we'll go ahead and definitely look into that and make sure that it doesn't need to be modified from what's current usage. Since we're not increasing occupancy over the existing seat count today.
is John there?
Yes.
John, does planning have any input on that as far as, what's required when boats dock up there?
Well, I could ask Beth Bellis directly, who's the harbor master.
You might want to do that. I mean, I know, being with the academy, we have kind of strict standards as far as, how many boats are permitted, where they can tie up at, how they can tie up, blah, 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 blah. So, it's just a question.
Well, boats arrive now, and tie up, but I never see any of them staying very long, I have to say. It's sort of drop off, but I can look into that.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll look into it as well.
Any other questions, Leslie?
That's it for me.
Okay, the questions I had when I was thinking about this is, I appreciated the views from the water. I know this building is not from the period of significance, but I am curious how this will look when the city dock project is completed and that park is elevated, and specifically with regards to the parking garage and the parking lot. Were there other options considered for the second level that might potentially screen some of that parking area from those that are across the Ego Alley?
We haven't explored that. We're going in with a separate application here shortly to HPC Commission for the second floor components of it, and that's something we can definitely consider a screen to help protect the view of the parking lot.
Great. Brendan, do you have another question?
No, I was just going to point out that when you come back with that second application, it would be really useful, I think, if you had an elevation from the view of the height of where the city dock project is going to be, because this looks like you're from about 5 feet above water level.
Yeah, we're about at the dock across Ego Alley, so we definitely give elevated views of this
No, I agree. It's going to be important to see what the second story looks like, and we're going to have a lot better vantage point when we're elevated on sort of the future city dock level. So it'd be good for the next application to see that.
Yeah, absolutely. We can include that for sure.
And so the other question I have for you before we have our deliberations, Andrew, is we'll give John an opportunity to provide the staff report, but have you reviewed it and reviewed the conditions that he proposed in that?
Yeah, we have, and we agree to it.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So let's go to the next step and have John present his staff report.
Well, my distillation of the staff report for this application is that essentially it's a remodeling of an existing restaurant in a non-contributing but important building on the waterfront. And I think that the applicant has been careful in their design. They've chosen traditional and organic materials, and they've been responsive with any changes that were requested in material. It's certainly not going to create a false sense of history. And if it's as busy as Pussers, you frankly won't see that much of it. Because Pussers is always packed with people, and you really don't get to see that much. But it's Pussers has been very basic, and this is aiming at a more elevated experience. It is, I think, very important, Andrew, that there is a collaboration on the outdoor fixtures and furnishings. I do want to avoid the back and forth that was encountered at 110 Compromise Street. And I know that they have the same firm looking at things for the fabrics and so on, that design group. So I'm looking forward to working with them. But that's really the thing to underline here. If there are plans to enclose any of this, I'd like to know about them now, rather than in the future when I see them. But I haven't heard anything to that effect, so I'm going to assume that this is going to remain open to the elements, and that it's going to provide a new venue for people to enjoy the waterfront.
John, your assumption is absolutely correct, and there's no plan to enclose it. And we look forward to working with you in your office on those selections.
Great. So I've recommended approval.
Great, thanks, John. We did not get any public comment on this one. And correct me if I'm wrong, Julian, but I don't believe we have anybody here to testify, any members of the public to testify for or against this application. So
That is correct.
great. So that was our opportunity for public testimony. So I'm closing that public testimony now. And now we have deliberations by the commission. So Brendan, do you want to go first if you have any other
No, I agree with John. The great irony of this very thoughtful presentation is that nobody is ever going to see it, because there are always bodies there, and then underneath the bodies there are boats. I also think it's ironic that they've done such a good job trying to match the facade of the existing hotel, which 30 years ago everybody loathed. So now that is a permanent feature of Annapolis, and I like that they're making it a coherent part of the whole.
Thanks, Brendan. Leslie, do you have any deliberations that you would like to share?
No, I feel like, I'm very happy to see, um, that, it's being tastefully done and, you know, having respect for that waterfront area. That's it.
Thanks, Leslie. Bill, do you have any comments you'd like to make?
No, it's just, this is one of the surprising ones where they're doing a lot and no one's going to know it in the end. So what can you say?
Thanks, Bill. So my thoughts, are consistent with the other commissioners. I do think this is a feasible application that, and we appreciate the applicant working with the Historic Preservation Commission and the Chief of Preservation. And we are excited that there's so much effort and energy and money being put into such a highly visible site, despite it, as mentioned, it's not a building that's from the period of significance, but it's extremely visible to those in the city, and the city is putting a lot of money in across the street or across the water, that will hopefully draw even more people to the area. So I just express that appreciation again to the applicants for working with us so well. So in that case, I need a motion to approve with the conditions.
Motion to approve with conditions?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you, Andrew and Marshall, because we hope to see the further applications when they're for the other components of the project.
Great, thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Great. Let's we'll move on to the next item on our agenda. So that'll be 198 King George Street. All right, welcome, Terry.
And we've got Aiden Mock, who is in my office as a designer that's also here tonight.
Great, thank you for coming, Aiden. Yeah, well, would you like to go ahead and start your presentation?
Sure, hopefully I can share my screen. I wasn't sure exactly where to begin. I have the drawings from both the preliminary so that you guys know what's going on. And recently I sent in, and hopefully you all have had a chance to look at some of the photographs. And this was in response to John's comments about the Pent roof, the front roof that we're proposing for this job. But that's, I'll take you through just a second. I have to kind of maneuver through here. All right. What you all have seen, and in the preliminary, you also saw this. So 198 King George has a current front porch. Oh, I can zoom in a little bit so I can maneuver around with this. And what we're hoping to do is replace the wooden steps here and the steps at the side. That's the primary goal. At one time, which I'll show you in a second, just so I can remind you of the preliminary, there used to be a porch right over the entrance, right in here. And then there was a porch across here, and it was demolished sometime in 1987. And we have a drawing. That's the only thing we have as evidence, and a photograph that indicates what was there at the time. And I know I have a photograph of the street to kind of show you. And that's where the idea of the Pent roof that we propose for this area came from. So what we've done for the new building is create a new brick with stone capped front steps and a metal rail. And that was also at the preliminary hearing, and everyone seemed pretty good with the idea of that. And we've added more detail to that about how it actually works. So, and you all probably have seen these drawings. And I think the main concern at the preliminary hearing was coordination of, say, this ventilation hole, which we have in the brick here. I can expand a little further, I think, so you can see a little bit more. It was right. Oops. Ow, where am I? It's always the Zoom people that are in the way of the controls. These are all the details. Here we go. So right in here, I've kind of had Aiden coming up with how all of the brick and McNichol's version of this mesh that will be in here to allow both ventilation, because there's a kind of an HVAC unit that may or may not actually be there in the end, but they're hoping that the existing one can be replaced and it's underneath these stairs. The other concern the commission had, and you can see at the time, of what the actual treads would be like. And so we've kind of looked to try and get, instead of a bluestone cap, there's this kind of buff colored version of flagstone that we are specifying for the project, which I think would be quite nice. That was a concern. And these are just details of some of the patterns. This would be on the other side. If you saw, let me go back. On the right side, we've created vent holes. It's over here. That will allow, you know, ventilation through underneath here, but I want to make sure that nothing can get in there, you know, like rats and or any kind of squirrels and rabbits, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what that mesh is about. What seems to be, and so that's the presentation of the permit docs that you all have seen. What I wanted to bring up from the preliminary hearing, and the reason I showed you all those photographs is when we first met about this, and I don't know if whether all of you were there, some of you were, and some others were, but we had a historic photograph showing an added porch at some point. And that's where the idea of putting the pent roof came, but I didn't want to replace these columns. And the evidence we have about it is a drawing that Michael Dowling had done in '87. And this is the only one we have. We have this, and we also have a plan that he drew up at the time that show that there were two columns that, my assumption, they don't really show what it was, but because two doors away, there's block here, and it appears to be that these were pillow block of some sort, as was this one, and this was a concrete porch, and all of that was removed. So when we went to cover the existing door, it became apparent to me that if I try to at least use the idea of this thing, but do it in a different way, that a pent roof would work, particularly because there are a number of pent roofs around. And not that I was mimicking them, which is what all those photographs, which I'll then show you those. You all got a chance to look at this. And John had suggested at the last meeting that there wasn't a quorum for that. I had brought this series of images of other pent roofs in the area and all the variations on a theme that exists. I actually worked on this building at one time for 214, I'll bring it up larger, 214 Prince George. There's some very, unique versions of roofs coming over and covering doors over here. This was another house actually that I had worked on, and this had been there. This pent roof was there at the time when we were renovating and adding to the rear, which went through probably 8 years ago, 10 years ago now. We did an addition off the rear. I personally thought this thing was pathetic and awful, but there it was. Somebody put it on sometime after the original building, and it's a pent roof. This over here at 9 College, this was an interesting one, but it looks like the house has not gotten renovated a whole heck of a lot, and it's got this simple, almost a 2x4 and structure creating a pent roof. Then there's all kinds of variations on a theme for 70 East Street. That is visible. And then there's the new construction at 181 Prince George. Quite distinct, obviously not a historic precedent, but certainly based on something. And then we've got 234 Prince George. Then I brought in another one of my favorites, but it is highly unique to that house. And that is actually, it doesn't have the address down here, it's 54 Franklin. So when we went to go, I use this image to the right, if everybody can see it. I took a photograph of this 200 I had worked on recently, rebuilding this porch and renovating that for that owner. But look at 202, which is this is the closest to what would have been over here. That's our building, and it was removed. And I use that as an example to just show that there was something, but I don't want to recreate that, right? But I do want to achieve something of an ilk like it. And you can see that everything, and it does face west, so it makes sense that the front door and the front stoop are covered if at all possible. What I tried not to do, and I use these as because John Tower made a comment about false history. And if anybody read my explanation for these photographs, basically, I don't believe what I'm trying to create is false history. It's a newer version of something that's existed for 100 years and has various versions throughout the historic district. But I did not want to do something that really does create a conflicting idea about our building, which would have columns in some way that are, 19th century, and, whether it's in these cases, I just didn't think this was appropriate. I bring in this one only because this is what I based my initial design on. I did this about 10 years ago, and it's in Murray Hill, and it's on a colonial revival house. So we have a 20s, early 30s house, and this was put on in 2012. It's not that it would have been on this building, 100 years ago, but it does blend with it. And I brought that in because it just goes to show that there are pieces like this that exist that can be done and that are obviously not historic, but they are related in detail to historic precedent. So that's the nuts and bolts of the project. And the only reason I went to this degree to show this is to kind of make sure that John felt comfortable and that you all felt comfortable with the idea that it was not trying to mimic history at all. It was just trying to A, cover the stoop, and B, take parts of something that had been there or was, potentially there and was an addition originally to the house, and there should not be in it. And I got no feedback initially at the preliminary hearing. Pent roof was a problem. I think when John, I think you found a couple examples, and particularly 246, and there was another one that you believed that false history or the idea of mimicking something and making the building look like it was something it wasn't became a problem. And that's why the letter and these images. So that's the long and the short of my presentation, which I can bring up other images if everybody's wants to see a little bit more about that.
Thanks, Terry, for providing that. Let's see if we have any clarifying questions from our commissioners. Leslie, do you have any questions?
So, in your research for pent roofs in Annapolis, were there any from that period of time that you found?
Well, they all seem, most of the ones in the historic district, and John can clarify this, fell sometime after the original building. So there's some relatively close to it in time, but they were always, I don't think they were always conceived in the initial design. And John, from his knowledge, knows a little bit more about that for each of the buildings designated. But they all came about at different times, just like you look at those porches on King George. They all came about later. They weren't original to the buildings.
Yeah, a utility type function, you know, to
Yeah,
keep the
particularly
rain
on
and the
that-
sun
that
off.
west side. Yeah, that side is just boiling hot,
Yeah.
facing west. So it makes sense that people came up with the idea of porches, plus people were using porches. So
Okay,
I can understand.
just curious. Thank you.
Yeah.
Brendan or Bill, do you have any clarifying questions?
No, I do not. Thank you.
None for me.
Okay, so for me, just a couple of clarifying questions. Just to remember that this door is a non-functioning door as part of the, is it currently functioning or what, is it already a non-functioning door?
It is currently, they did a renovation some years back where they use that side behind the door as kind of storage or something. So it's not an entry, in fact, at this point.
Okay,
And of course, my belief is that eventually somebody's going to buy the house and want the door to be a door. So you don't want to destroy the idea that it can be one. You know?
sure. I mean, that makes sense for the stairs and all that. I guess that was going to lead into my next question is, or the evidence about the roof that was there is from the 1987. Is there any, what was there evidence from prior periods as to what was there?
No, I mean, not that I know of. John, I don't know that you had looked at any of the Sanborn maps from the 30s that would have showed it, but I assume that would have shown that porch. That was the one that you brought up. That
Yeah.
porch was added sometime in the late 20s or early 30s, I think it was.
Yes. Yes, and yeah, it's one story, and I think it's it might be noted as concrete block.
Yeah, I think I remember seeing that in the pre-application, that photo. And the last clarifying question for right now, Terry, is that it sounds like you and the applicant do not clearly read the staff report that does not recommend approval for the front porch roof. It sounds like you do not want to agree to that condition currently.
Right.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that. So let's move on to the next step. So John, will you present your staff report?
So to look at the and just consider the two bases for the porch, the masonry, steps, the railing. That was not an issue for either the parking area or the front, because the wood steps that are there are conjectural. But I was much stricter in the addition of feature, which I thought would have a strong impact on the facade and didn't have a precedent in either written or photographic history of the house. So I did also mention that part of the reason that this house is significant is it is the last house on King George Street that was not taken by the expansion of the Naval Academy, which was quite significant. And I'm working on a project now to quantify that. But the Naval Academy at the turn of the 1900s exercised eminent domain, and probably with the blessing of the city, and took, get ready, 145 structures. Very substantial amount of the neighborhood there. And this one they did not take. So sort of the last beacon on the street. In terms of recreating something, if it were easy to differentiate historically, I would say fine. But the design to me speaks of early to mid 20th century additions, because that's typically when that style was added. And that was my hesitation to approve it. If there were some way to look at this and say, okay, there was something here and we want to recreate it, this could have been done administratively. So that's why I didn't recommend approval.
Thank you, John. We did not receive any public testimony for this this application. So we'll move to the deliberations by the commissioners. Bill, will you start us off on what your thoughts are on this application?
Basically, where I am, I know you got rid of the bluestone. You now have the beige. I'm not real clear how the beige relates to the history, but I don't have really any problem with that. The side, not an issue. The little roofed porch area, I'm somewhat ambivalent on, but I understand the historic nature of the building itself and the idea of what you want to do. And I'm kind of going back and forth on it as to how I feel whether it's appropriate or not. I know that's not what you want to hear. You want a definitive answer there, but I still want to hear what other people have to say.
Thanks, Bill. Brendan, if you want to go next.
Just want to ask John a question. I just want to understand, is your reservation about the portico, is it about the design of the portico that suggests that it's historically accurate, or is it the existence of it? And I guess what I'm getting at is there a way that it could be structured to make it absolutely clear that it's a recent addition, that it is not historical, but allows the owner to put that in?
Well, I brought that up in the pre-application. So one of the things that is important about the house is that it retains its original trim, and
John, just to clarify, it does not. So if you've looked at some of the trim around the windows, all of it was replaced whenever they did a renovation. If you look,
I meant in design, not necessarily in fabric.
That's even questionable. So they tried to make it look Victorian, but it doesn't. Anybody that knows it,
you're saying that
modern, so I don't know.
Right, you're saying the HPC approved an embellishment?
I have no clue, because there was no application that I'm aware of. I just know that there's new trim.
You've raised doubt. Well, I can tell you some of it's new because some of it rotted.
No.
But it was replacing kind.
No, there's a lot of things that are not actually Victorian pieces. By the way, it was almost as if siding had been there. I can't quite figure out how they came up with this. I didn't detail it because I'm not changing it, but there was something done to the facade that is definitely not original. I don't know when it was done. I don't know if it was approved. I don't know whether somebody just went in there at some point and modified it. But if you looked, not at the front door, which is why I tried to protect it, but at some of the other stuff, there's some pretty, I find it questionable, but I figured it's there. Somebody did it. They tried to make it look Victorian, and it's not. And I thought, well, maybe somebody wanted to make it look modern, a version of a Victorian, but modern. And so that's what some of the trim that's out there on the front facade is.
Well,
so just to clarify that, there's been
I can tell you that I worked on the stabilization and repair of that facade, right, and at around 2000, and I did not find evidence of what you're speaking of.
Yeah.
And I got it down to its basic wood and worked on stabilizing it. And I think, frankly, it's what you see now. But I didn't see anything that I thought was material that would have said, "Oh, well, this trim didn't exist in this fashion."
It just looked like it was a new version of an old thing partly its thickness, and there's a number of other things that I was like, just didn't look right. But regardless, we're not changing it. It's more a question of the facade has undergone quite a bit of modification because it removed that porch. And so there's a certain amount of, license because there had been a thing there. And there had been a roof in the same place.
There was license taken. I mean, the cast iron fence is an anachronism. I don't know what feature, who decided that was okay, but that was brought in from somewhere else, obviously. And of course, all of this would be a lot simpler if there were any sort of record that went with it. But I will testify that I believe that the trim that's on the facade is of the original form, and there's a lot of original material still there, and that's true with the cornice also.
Yeah, there definitely is still some.
But beyond that, it is the rhythm of that facade to have that trim. And it is the character of that facade to have that trim. And my hesitation in approving this is that I think what you've designed will become a major feature in the appearance. It will become a focal point. And it will also possibly obscure the trim, which is a character-defining feature. And so that was why I did not recommend approval. The other thing is, and I said this right from the start, if you could find a way so that it could not be mistaken, I said like 1884 to 2024, just put it on the front of the gable, something that would delineate without question, oh, this is new. And I don't think we've gotten there yet with this, where a layman could look at it and say, oh, well, that's not original, because if it were easily differentiated from the original, but still sympathetic, then it could be approved. But this is much harder to differentiate because it might look like a feature that's taken on historic significance over time.
Right. I guess the question would be, with all the pent roofs that you saw that have existed throughout history in that area, and they are all different eras, and they all have different details. So how in the heck do you not make one too simple that looks like one that was put on 40 years after it started, so in the 1920s, and the curvilinear ones that occurred in the 1980s or 90s when the brick building was done, nor like the other ones. They're all over the place. So I guess the question would be,
Terry, I've written all of them letters asking for them to be removed. Sorry. It's no, if they were done, let's say if a building was built in the 1880s and it had a 1920s portico, I say fine. It's taken on its own significance. But here we have an 1880s building that has a proposal for a portico that appears as though it might be 1920s, but in fact it's 2020s.
And I can see the conflict at the same time, that if you're talking about a layman, most laymen don't know the difference between one thing and another thing. So it's more of an academic issue, definitely. And I think the main thing in the guidelines is that it not try to be false history, which this is not trying to be. And any historian that looked at it would know that it wasn't original, and nor would it be a 20s because of how it's constructed. So it is definitely an academic history question. And in your case, it's because visually to you, it stands out, which I agree, as something that could be done in particularly the colonial revival period. It definitely has that feel that it's possible that it be done that way. It's just its materials wouldn't be of the same ones that are in a modern way. And that's why I say it's a little bit academic, because anybody that knew history could figure it out relatively easily if they wanted to. And so I guess that's where the guidelines are guidelines. It's meant to be, does it, in your opinion, and I don't disagree, your opinion is strong, that says it's false. You can't have something, but at the same time, I've seen so many examples that are stuck on buildings that I go, you've got to be kidding me. It detracts from the original building and is more ornate. There's one on Charles Street. I can't even believe that was done 20 years ago. I don't know how it got approved. It was just horrendous on one of the most historic buildings around. But that being said, there's always examples of bad things that have gotten done. And that's not why I say this. At some point, it's in the details and the materials that anybody that wanted to figure it out could figure it out. And so the question I have for you and the commission is, if the intent of having a pent roof, the idea is correct, that it's okay to cover it. It was covered at one time, and at some point all that wood that was where the old porch was had to have been replaced, and we're not touching the trim, we're just touching the siding where there had been a roof there before anyway. What it implies that to do so again makes sense. It's not wrong. It's just more in the details of whether there's an arc, whether the brackets, I used curved brackets because that wouldn't have been done except at something that's trying to be a little more craftsman related, in terms of an idea. But it is definitely a conjuncture of a number of different stylistic things, which is the intent. It's not supposed to be in any way a mimic of the things that have been done before. So I don't know.
Yeah, Terry,
exactly
thank you
how,
for thanks for providing that. I think we thank you for providing your position. I need to hear from the other commissioners. Leslie Youth has her hand up, so go ahead, Leslie.
So, John, I was just wondering, is this more of a matter of materials that would cause it to stand out, to delineate from a past time period?
Well, I don't know that you would know what the materials were, because I believe the intention is to paint this. It's actually, at least in part, because it's not a functioning door, that it would be a feature to cover a door which doesn't actually need the feature also, because now the door is fixed.
But nobody knows that.
Everyone here does. And my point with that is, so we're putting up something where it's really not, there's no precedent for exactly that thing, but we're putting it up, and I'm saying that it's going to be a much stronger feature than it may seem. That it's going to redefine the facade to a degree, and it's going to be an element which is strong.
So, I mean, just like if you had a fenestration that was like no longer being used on the side of a house where another building was, you would still want to keep the fenestration, correct?
Well, those are the guidelines.
Yeah, yeah. And so this is like a fenestration. It's a doorway, but does it have to be a functioning doorway?
I think that's
I'm
an
just
ancillary
asking.
point. No, it's just an ancillary point that
Okay.
we're adding something to cover a doorway, with the impression that, oh, this is the front door, and the front door is actually on the side of the house.
Okay.
Bill, go ahead.
You're a much more knowledgeable person in this district. So
Well,
I'm just asking questions.
I mean, I worked on the house, so
Sure.
I got it all.
So when you worked on the house, was
Mhm.
there any, I mean, when did you literally at the door, was there any removal of the existing material at the doorway that you could like maybe do a forensic, you know, um, check to see if there was anything there at all to indicate that there had been um, a pent roof or any kind of like small overhang there?
You know, I didn't look, but and Terry's point is probably reasonable on that. That at some time there may have been something there that was removed, and that siding was repaired. I have taken off things like cedar shingles and seen an outline of a roof. It's actually fairly common. They're all over the historic district. You know, certain houses you can look and say, "Oh, well, there's the roof line for
Yeah.
the front porch."
A palimpsest there, yeah. So, okay, I'm just, so I guess my question is for a way forward on this, John. What would be your thoughts?
I mean, if I were making a recommendation, it would be to have the roof become more diminutive, because I consider it at this point to be a strong feature. And I should also mention, I went hither and yon for comparisons. Thompson Street, Murray Hill, the hospital site, Prince George, King George. You know, I really went all over, and then I found some King properties on Cathedral Street, so I used that one. That was in my staff report, and just to show how strong the effect can be of a roof like this. If I am in the minority about the effect of this element on the house, then that's okay. I know that it seems like it's not going to have a great effect, but I think its effect will be stronger than maybe everyone has the impression for at this point. So if it were more diminutive, smaller, I might have an easier time with it.
Is it okay if I ask a question, Kevin?
I need to hear from the other commissioners, Terry.
Okay, that's what I was thinking.
All right, Brendan and Bill both have their hands up. So Brendan, why don't you go?
This is starting to feel like non-Euclidean geometry. We all agree that there is, in theory, a roof line that would not suggest a historical origin, but we don't know what it is. So I guess my question is, not being an architect, maybe it's to John and Terry. If we send Terry away and say, take another shot at it, do we think that's going to bear fruit? I feel like we're talking about something that we all believe could exist, but nobody knows what that thing is. And I think that's what I have trouble with. I'm trying to figure out how to give Terry sort of useful instructions in the case that we don't approve.
All right, John, do you want to take a shot at that? And then,
well, I appreciate what Brendan said, and I'm certainly willing to entertain something that isn't quite as strong. So the thing is, Terry, it looks good. It's a nice design. It's just where it's going.
all right, Terry, I'll get to you in a minute. But Bill, why don't you share your thoughts too?
John, I'm looking for a little clarification. Am I mistaken that there was a door there historically, where we had that one picture that had the columns with the pillar blocks and the porch? So there was a door there historically.
Yes.
So this would be a nod to the existing door, which is basically what's there now, is a nod to the existing door. So it is representing history in a false way. Is that what we're talking about?
Essentially, if we were working from a photograph,
Mm-hmm.
as I said, this wouldn't even be in front of the commission. You know, we could figure out how to recreate what was there, no problem. If this were on the side of the house, this would have a different impact. But this is an important facade.
No, I understand that. This is a hard one, because at the same time that I agree we don't want to create a false impression, in some ways it is allowing a pedestrian, a visitor, to see what that house may have, at least representatively, had as an entrance. And it is a traditional piece of houses of that style, if I'm not mistaken, to have that entrance provided. For some reason, the previous owners, whoever, decided they were just going to close it off because they didn't want to have people coming in off the street directly. And whether that was if the porch was still left at that time, or if it's just because the steps after the porch and all were torn out in the step, and what's there now was presented. I'm trying to figure, I know I'm rambling, but I'm trying to figure what is the representation of history that's being lost or provided. I sort of feel like we're losing what the house was and more moving towards what the house is going to be without a door. We're going in saying, okay, this house does not have a door, to the point that someone coming down 4 years from now, when this is all closed off and it's all gone, is going to go, oh, that house has no door on the front. Everything's on the side. I wonder why that is.
Well, we're not planning to take out the door, but the door is planning, the proposal is to replace the door.
I understand. Yes, but it's, I'm not representing it right. The roof covering basically says this is, or in this case was, the entrance to the house.
The primary
The
entrance.
primary entrance.
Mhm.
And that is the history of the house. If someone was to restore the house as best they could to a past representation, they would replace the door, have that opening.
That's correct.
And they probably would not be able to replicate the original door, historically correct, because we don't know what it was. In the same way, we can't now know what that roof covering was. It's being repaired or replaced, updated, fixed, as things are through history that slowly change them. Do we really want to get rid of that? I know that's a
You mean get rid of it? You mean or
get rid
replace
of the
it?
roof, or just leave the roof there, or replace it? It's, what are we really, I guess I'm wondering, what are we really achieving by either accepting or refusing the proposal? And what are we losing anything?
All right, Bill, Brendan has his hand up and then I have.
I know, I'm rambling, trying to figure it
I
out.
can share. Yeah, yeah. Go ahead, Brendan.
I'm just going to try a different way of saying I think the same thing that Bill is saying, which is that if I come at this from a different angle as a historian, there is a historiographic question about what you do when there is a silence in the archives. You know that something happened. You know there's a hole in the archives. You don't actually have the archives themselves that say what happened. And there's an active discussion among historians. Do you allow informed, thoughtful fiction? Here's a thing we think might have happened. We can't say it didn't happen. We can't say it did happen. But if we ignore it, then we in a way suggest that it didn't happen. So how do I then take that and apply that to this question right now? I feel like I'm leaning towards allowing thoughtful, informed fiction, because there was something there. We don't know what it was. It feels odd, given the current lines of the house, to put nothing there because we don't know what it was. But I'm sensitive to John's comment, or John's basic concern, which is that we don't want to suggest something that wasn't there. But in a way, by deciding not to put anything there, we're suggesting that there was never anything there, which we also know not to be true. I'm hesitant to say you can't do anything there because we don't know what it was. I guess that's where I'm leaning. I think I'm just rephrasing what Bill is saying.
Thank you, Brendan. So my thoughts, and just wanted to clarify, since there's only 4 commissioners, if and when we go to a vote, we would need 3 votes in favor of, and that a tie is basically a no or a denial. So the thoughts that I'm concerned about, since our only evidence of what we have from the period of significance is the Sanborn maps. The first one does not have any porch, and the second one has the 1-story platform porch that we know. And that, for me, I can't put anything else over the door that doesn't line up with one of those two, and putting nothing actually does line up with the older image. And that this structure is quite important because it's, as John mentioned, is one of the few, it's an important structure because it was there when the Naval Academy took over so many properties, and is one of the few, is the only one left that was saved in that event. So I'm inclined to not put a porch there that is not, or a porch roof that's not intended to be used to protect, as it's only there for decorative element, as the door is currently not intended to be used as the front door. As John said, I would be happy if there were, I would agree to something that was obvious to a layman. I don't feel like this is an academic conversation. This is what we're supposed to be doing as the Preservation Commission, is making it obvious to visitors and those without an expertise what things are new and what are not new. So I am currently not inclined to approve the porch roof as it is. So if there's other thoughts, like, it sounded like, Brendan, you were ready to approve it.
I'm actually coming around to the argument you just offered.
All right, Bill, what are you thinking?
I guess my question is, sorry, go ahead, Bill.
No, you go ahead, Brendan. Finish your thought, please.
Is there any way we can send Terry away with a meaningful no. A useful no. And if maybe the answer to that is no. I'd like to send Terry away with a useful no.
Yeah, I mean, the challenge is the lack of evidence.
And
Um,
to-
and
to- sorry.
we're-
To
yeah,
to me right now, I'm leaning towards clean it up, paint it up, make it look pretty as it is.
does that mean approve or disapprove?
That means what is currently there basically does not change.
So no porch roof. You're agreeing with John's condition of no porch roof.
Yes.
Okay. Since that's enough to deny, Terry, do you have any last comments before we move to a vote?
Oh, I guess the question would be what the condition that you move with regard to the application is. Whether it be to deny the roof but accept the other stuff, which is what John had recommended, or as John's also suggested, that there's details to differentiate a pent roof that he would accept. And I would have thought that the commission might have considered, between John and I working on the details, to associate a new version of this very same thing with materials that make it more apparent that it's modern or contemporary or not historic version of that thing.
Well,
Yeah,
Terry, if I could say, you know, I'm always open to that.
Yeah, I think
That's what I assume would probably be where the commission might go, as opposed to where it has moved, which it's obviously your, purview to go wherever.
Well, is that a proposal that you're making?
Well, I mean, that's what, if it had been my brothers, that's what I would have offered at the beginning, but I didn't know that that was an option. Because what happens is we're sort of in a limbo, period where there's something and it's on the building. And I got initially an indication that that was okay, that the thing be there, but of course the details are the thing that make something make or break something.
Yes.
So I don't know how the commission makes a condition that allows, say, somebody between John and I to work out a better version of this thing that does whatever it needs to do, so it's neither false history nor, so it's apparent that it was an addition, but at the same time not look like it was stuck on there, and is wrong. So
yeah. So Terry, that's a great question. So, your first question was, and I'm pretty comfortable that with the staff report and the other commissioners, that the stairs on both the front and the side, the commissioners are comfortable with, and that is something that we can do, is make the condition that the porch roof receive a administrative approval from John to one that can comply. So we can delegate that to John as something that's okay to do, and I'm comfortable saying the commissioners are comfortable with that. Having that condition and approving the application with that condition.
I'm okay with that. I like that
sounds
solution.
interesting.
That works.
I agree.
So if Terry, if you agree with that, then I think we can just go ahead and approve and complete our action.
One thing, since John's the one who's going to be doing all the work, does that work for you, John?
Of course.
Okay,
Of
throw
course.
the work on John.
Sure. So
Yes.
Terry, just you're comfortable with that plan?
Oh yeah, John, we can have a bumwad session.
Oh, old school analog, pencil and bumwad.
In that case, I think we're ready I'm ready for a motion to approve with conditions, that with the condition that the front porch roof have not be approved as is, and that John will, or that the chief of preservation can administratively approve an appropriate porch roof.
I move. So move.
Can I get a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I,
Thank you, Terry. So with that, will we approve the application as submitted, and with the condition that the front porch roof receive an administrative approval
On a new design
on a new design?
approved by the Chief of Historic Preservation.
Yep, approved by the Chief
Okay.
of Historic Preservation. I like it.
Okay.
All right.
I
Thank you,
love that
Terry.
the basic work of this commission is to say, John, you go figure it out.
yay.
Hey, John, if
That's-
you need
that
help,
is
I'm ready to
not true.
go.
Oh, look, he's
Yeah,
got some
oh, there we
lot.
go.
It-
That's hilarious. I appreciate everybody's, willing to work through this.
All right. Thank you, Terry.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Terry.
Thanks so much. All right.
Thank you.
Take
Thanks,
care.
Abe.
Good night.
Right, night.
All right, back to our agenda. So this that concludes our new business, and we have the other business for 2 Compromise Street, the known as the Annapolis Yacht Club, and Andrew Fishback. So we have a pre-application. Just as by way of a reminder, this pre-application is an accommodation made to assist property owners and the representatives in developing their application. No comments or suggestions made here regarding this project should be considered approval or disapproval of the project itself. Andrew, do you understand and agree to these terms?
You're muted, Andrew.
I do.
Great. So we'd love to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, is my other screen still available?
It is, Andrew, yeah.
Are you able to promote me to that? Oh, here it is.
Yeah, you should be good.
Great. Can you see my screen?
You're not.
Not
sharing
yet.
your-
Looks like it's still.
I can, oh, not the screen now.
Oh, here we go.
There it is.
Perfect. Great. So our meeting today, or what we're presenting to you is a pre-application meeting at the 2 Compromise Street at the Annapolis Yacht Club. Main clubhouse is a 2nd floor pergola over the existing deck on the south elevation along Spot Creek. So I have some, just existing images here, so we can I can describe a little more where that's going to be located for you. So on the 2nd floor deck, on the south side would be these 3 bays and then 2 bays here as well on the east side. And then you can see the existing deck wraps around. There's a lower level storage area here, a 2nd floor, or 3rd floor balcony here that overlooks the yacht basin. And then of course the lower level skipjack room. Just flip through these kind of quickly. This is the entryway. You can see some of the roof forms. The original structure was built in 1963 and as a modern early international style. At that time, as renovated in 1995, where some additional exterior elements were added that broke up that horizontal nature and create some vertical elements, like the elevator shaft that was there, and then some other things were changed. And then in 2015, it caught fire and burned down, and then was renovated in 2018 to its existing style that reinforced some of those international style characters, design details in 1963. Just some images here. It is from the bridge. Another profile shot for reference. I have these here. These are just some existing floor plans that we can go back and reference, but here's the main 2nd floor deck. And what we're looking to do is add a covered pergola over this area, highlighted in red. These are some existing elevations that show kind of the current horizontal nature and style of the building, the exposed structural elements, columns, low slope roof line, and overhanging pieces. around the building. This is from the east elevation. And then, so what we're planning to do, this is the plan for the pergola. You can see from the east elevation, the 3 bays that we would like to add. It's an aluminum pergola structure with a retractable sun awning that's concealed from view. At this angle, it'd be powder coated black to match the existing color of the building, some of the structural elements there, and it aligns with the existing structure. You can see the columns behind it, beyond it, and the horizontal floor slabs as well. It's all over the existing footprint, and it really doesn't significantly change any mass, scale, proportion, or rhythm of the building. It kind of complements it. This is the south elevation. You can see the here 4 bays that align with the structural elements. And then here, the proposed plans. On the second floor, the columns are in line with the railing structure, or sit just behind it, but align with the stanchions of the railing and the structural grid. And then this is the overhead view of it from the 3rd floor. We can see the outline of the frame itself. The easiest way to show it is I'll show some renderings of it. So this is rendering existing condition, and one of the reasons we want to the club wants to add this is to really eliminate the umbrellas on the site and clean up the elevation and make it more complementary to the building form. So this is what's there today, and then this is the proposed pergola structure, which is really cleans up the look of the building and complements the existing horizontal nature of the form, reinforces the structural grid, which was part of the 1963 design. Another angle, here it is from lower part of the bridge. And then here's the proposed pergola. You can see the sunshade that retracts back. I'll have another view of this from aerial view, so you can see the operation of it. Again, here's as it is today, the proposed pergola. Again, this is from the kind of southeast view, looking at the bridges here. And this is kind of just above the yacht basin. Here's the aerial view of what's there today. The sunshades stick out, and this 3rd floor deck. And initially, during 2015, we were approved by HPC. Hammond Wilson did the design work for it, and we had a 3rd floor approval for a 3rd floor balcony that wrapped the entire 3rd floor, but the plan was changed and was limited to just this portion based on the budget and cost of the balcony. So here's the proposed pergola. You can see it in its fully open position here on the far left, and then it partially open and then fully retracted back when it's not in use and open to the air. Just another angle. There it is. It's full view. This is just lower angle from the docks. You can just get a feel for how it would enhance the building. This is some of this product specification. It's an OMA awning or pergola, excuse me. This just goes over some of the details. This is an installed look of it. Our version would be similar to this black version with 2 columns, and then the 3rd side would be supported. One side would be supported from the building, kind of similar to this setup, but would be painted powder coated black, kind of similar to this picture here. And this shows a little closer how that is intended to work. There's no plan to currently use any of the lighting that's part of this. We'd still light the deck how it is lit today. There would be no change of any exterior lighting, and there'd be no plans to enclose it either. This just shows some configurations that are available. And it goes into some just more product specific detail and how it functions and works. So that's the completion of my presentation.
Thank you, Andrew. So my first question that I wanted to ask and kind of shape the conversation is, if these pergolas are fixed to the building, are we reviewing this as an outdoor furniture framework, or are we viewing this application as a structure?
It's
As
a
a permanent structure?
It's a structure. As soon as it's fastened, it's a structure.
And in that case, do we have an understanding of if this complies with any zoning expectations, if it's a structure that's being built?
Yeah, we met with.
Yeah, but the head of planning and zoning, and I think I'm quoting here, sent out an email this week saying this is so approvable.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just curious which zoning restrictions that he's using for that, but if that's what that's not our purview. I just wanted to make sure that that's how we're evaluating this project is in line with what's the proper methodology.
Well, there is some question that it's adding bulk over the waterfront, but I don't know if that's going to be reviewed or not.
Okay.
Well, visually, it adds bulk to the building. It increases the appearance of the envelope of the building, the size.
Yeah, I mean, this building's while not from our period of significance, we had this conversation earlier as well tonight. It's still a very important building. Visually, it's about as visually important as you can get from the water. In crossing the bridge, as so many pedestrians and cars do every day, right? It's a
well, it is a landmark. It is a modern landmark building.
Absolutely.
You see it. It's a focal point when you come into the harbor, or if you come in from Eastport.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, Andrew, I did have a question. The awning, the covering, I couldn't tell from the product specifications. It looked like there was an opportunity for 2 layers. Is there 1 layer, and is it just, what are you proposing to have, like a fabric?
Yeah, be down to what we would use. We use this so this is the lightweight fabric here in white that we would use.
Okay, so so it's a fabric. Is it so opaque, do not allow light through.
There you go.
There's a picture of how it is draped in this space.
Okay. So, I mean, even if it's not completely waterproof, it would provide protection from the rain, and provides shade as well, just like an outdoor furniture umbrella.
That's correct. And Kevin, it looks like, if you can see in this section here, there is a top piece here. And then this bottom draped fabric is what they call the undercover.
But that top piece would be completely open to the air when the awning was retracted. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Picture.
And as you're looking for that, can I just ask kind of bluntly, like with the umbrellas that are already there, like what's the point of this project?
Well, this protects you from light rain as well. So it allows them to extend the use of their outdoor dining in conditions that aren't as, favorable to outdoor dining with umbrellas. Umbrellas are problematic as well. Wind, there's a rising and lowering them at each table. For diners, each diner has different, requests of them raising and lowering them based upon what's going on their table and the angle of the sun. So this just allows them to extend the use of their outdoor space and take advantage of the nice view that they have, and helps clean up the overall functionality of using umbrellas. There's no needing to take it down in bad weather. They can kind of easily control the deployment of the sunshade well.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Brendan, looks like your hand's up. So why don't you, do you have some thoughts or?
My reservation about this is that it looks temporary. And if you had the third deck approved in the 2015 design, why not just add the deck?
This is a significantly more expensive, just based on the structure that needs to go back to cantilever the actual roofs, the steel on what we did on there's substantial costs associated with. So on this elevation on the third floor, get a view for you here. This deck here, the steel has to go all back into the building to that, and it's also very, very, a very narrow or thin plenum. So it's a clearance between the finished ceiling and structure is about 9 inches of the ceiling plenum width. So putting steel in there and bringing it back through the building and the mechanical systems and ductwork that are in the way currently would be problematic and kind of cost prohibitive.
Okay.
Bill, looks like your hand's up too.
Yeah, the system that you're proposing, like I said earlier, it does appear to add to the bulk of the building. When the screens are pulled over, that's going to further provide the impression that it's, though not enclosed, it is a closure of the area. And then I keep looking at and wonder when they're going to put all the lights in there so it glows in the dark. So you end up with sort of this very prominent activity space that is going to basically be a little lighthouse distracting. And I know that sounds a little bit off because with all the glass there you have inside the facility with the lights in there, it's not as distracting. But I see this as taking away from the surroundings rather than adding to it.
Yeah, I mean, any lighting that we would do on the exterior would be consistent with the design criteria of the HPC manual. And in accordance with that, currently the deck is lit with puck lighting that goes around the perimeter that shoots in one direction towards the deck and lights the surface of the deck.
Yes.
And that is what we would maintain. And with the existing dining room lighting through the windows would provide enough ambient lighting to light the space at the level that they would want to operate for a dining in the exterior. So we wouldn't be looking to add any additional lighting more than what's there today.
What about fabric enclosures in the winter to make it a heated space?
I don't believe this particular model can, I guess we wouldn't have sides on it, so it'd be difficult to heat it no differently than we would heat it with portable heaters on stands or attached to the building. So I don't know if this would significantly change what could be done today with it on the water. I don't think you'd be able to maintain much of a heat source there with it covered. It kind of just blow right out with the wind.
It would then be the same as you do with a tent if you had the sides.
Right, you had the sides, but currently we're not proposing any type of enclosure on the front of the.
I think the challenge there, Andrew, is that once it gets built, if it were approved with as is, the ability to enforce or prevent, even if there was like a stipulation, it's difficult to enforce that sort of future action from someone just putting up the screening, some sort of
Stop.
yeah.
Mhm, mhm.
So that's our challenge. And same with the lighting, right? Like it's hard to enforce that in the future when that looks like just a minor change to the occupant, and they can just do it without a significant investment. They may just do it, and it's hard for us to approve things that are so visible, and knowing that is so hard to control after the fact. So
Andrew, can you take us back to the original design that showed the approved third story deck?
Yeah, I can pull that up if you have 1 second. You're talking about this the one side, or do you want to see exactly?
Yeah, I want to see how far it extends, because it looks like what you're proposing here is a different, and I hope I'm using the term correctly, massing than the original plan that had a third deck. It looked like it only extended halfway out to the level of where the existing roof line is. I think
Yeah, that's correct.
So my concern is the old design, even the one you didn't execute, took the existing roof line and moved it down. And what you're proposing is you take the existing first story and move it up. So that's, twice the width of the deck that seems to be consistent with the roof line. And that's changing the massing of the building.
yeah, I think that's well put, Brendan.
I would disagree with the commission on that it's changing the mass of the building. In my opinion, it's a transparent structure. It's very light. It's not much different than, I can pull this back up, than the front portion of what's there today. On the front pieces of the building, and it actually complements it and helps reduce this kind of scale of the two-story portion of the roof deck, and helps to bring it down to more of a scale on the deck that's more appropriate.
Andrew, so are you saying that you think that this proposal more mirrors the front porch, and that way it creates a consistency from the front to the back?
Yeah, I think so. It extends that same kind of design, the horizontal lines of the building.
Yeah, I mean, the concern there is the one is the waterfront side, and one is the parking lot side, and even the front is visible. It's not as anywhere near as importantly visible as it is as the Spot Creek view.
Yeah, for this image right here, I don't see how this would expand the mass of the building. It's transparent. I continue to see through the architectural elements, that seem as elements, not really changing the mass and scale of the building. right? This particular view, you're able to see beyond and see the Naval Academy beyond the structure. And you can clearly see where the mass of the building is.
Would we say the same thing if it had glass in it? That because you can see through the glass, it doesn't affect the mass of the building?
Well, I think it depends on the glass that's used. At 110 compromise, we really used a transparent, low reflective museum quality glass on those exterior portions of Chop Tank Restaurant on the second floor, where there was a feature like this that was enclosed, and I don't think it made the mass of the building. It didn't make the mass any larger than it was prior, in my opinion. The sitting of the building is over this thing's over the existing footprint, and we don't see any adverse impact of the surrounding area of the structure. Maybe a different.
I hear what you're saying, Andrew, and I don't think you've been convincing to the commissioners yet, just to be blunt.
Right.
I think,
especially
sorry,
on the mass in particular, and that's because it's.
I mean, I don't see a difference between, if you look at this image here and this one, the pergola is, allows you to see more of the building and highlights its features. The grid of the structure, it continues these horizontal lines throughout, and I don't see how the view of the parking lot is any more significant or less significant than the water view.
I think part of the issue is also that the system that you're proposing isn't really consistent with the existing materials of the building. It is a pre-made system. It is something that you can buy to add to a house to cover a deck. But it seems like the stakes are higher here, and I wonder whether we would expect that whatever gets added, that's going to become, it is a permanent feature, uses materials that are more consistent with the rest of the materials that are everywhere else in that building. It seems like the beams are of a scale that's not consistent with the rest of it. It looks like an inexpensive solution to cover the deck, which I can understand from the yacht club's perspective, but doesn't seem consistent with the rest of the building.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Brendan, that it looks like it's not consistent with what is in the historic district. That this solution is a very modern solution for.
It's not consistent with what's on the rest of the building.
Yeah, even more importantly.
I think that. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry if I can interrupt. Can you just elaborate on how it's not consistent? So the structure itself is pre-manufactured in sections, just like any modern building material. The storefront that's used throughout here is aluminum. This is aluminum as well that matches that same finish. The sunshades around the entire building are aluminum sunshades that are pre-manufactured, fabricated system, just like this pergola. So I'm not sure how it's not consistent with those materials. So if you could just elaborate on that, and then also talk to the quality of the construction of the pergola itself, and how it's a lesser quality than what's on there.
I think if I look at all the other materials in the building, they seem to be thinner. There's a mass to these that is larger and wider. When I look at the railings, when I look at the what's dividing the windows in the rest of the building, the width and the heft of the beams that are supporting the system don't seem consistent with any of the other elements in the building. this seems like a system that you would buy and not architecturally consistent with the rest of the building.
So you're thinking if this was a larger scale system that was more mimicked more of these roof planes and the width of the columns and the floor thicknesses of the structure, that would be more appropriate if it was custom made from I guess tube steel.
I think so, yeah. If it were consistent with any of the other design elements, you point out correctly that you've got these planes on the back side of the building, but that's not what this looks like. It seems like either tube steel to be consistent with some of the other elements in the building, or something consistent with what you have on the back, but it seems like it doesn't fit either right now.
You're talking about the planes on the other side of the building. Remember, those are there to cover the steps. They have a specific function in that manner. And they also act to announce the entrance and the person's procession into the building. When you're looking out from the water to the building, you're going to see the mass of the building. And you're going to see this frame, whether it's the awnings are up, whether they put sides on it, where they put lights on it, that is now the face of the building. So there's two different visual representations here. One is the entrance to the building from the parking lot. The other is the approach to the city and to that and to the yacht club. So to compare the two as being like, they're not. At least my opinion.
I agree with Bill.
Yeah. Leslie, do you have thoughts? Do you agree with what we've been saying, or are you comfortable with what's proposed?
Well, I certainly understand the idea behind going with something that's a more consistent feature. I mean, umbrellas are nice, but just like the problems that we have with our downtown area and everything, they can become kind of a little cumbersome. In fact, a lot cumbersome. And the shades that he's proposing offer more continuity, I believe. It's hard to tell, with the photographs, unless you were to actually see samples of the materials, to what degree they are compatible with the existing materials. I also know that, as an architect, I have, considered this in some of my own work, and this is easier to use. I mean, you have a lot better control over the amount of shade. And then when you have bad weather that comes up, you can retract them much more easily. So I think I see the points where the concern is, does this cheapen this wonderful, beautiful contemporary design? And is it a permanent fixture, or is it considered more or less, a removable piece? So to that end, I consider, we have awnings that are installed on a number of commercial and private property around Annapolis. And when I say awning similar to that, maybe not as sophisticated, but this is something new. And I've seen even more sophisticated ones that will just the louvers open and shut, and it's a very sexy feature. So as we are considering this, I don't know what, I mean, would this be more along the lines of a zoning issue? Or is this a historical preservation issue?
Thanks, Leslie. John, yeah.
So it does have to be reviewed by HPC, and it also has to be reviewed by planning and zoning. So it's both.
Has it been reviewed by planning and zoning?
In a cursory way, but let me say this: I've met with Andrew, and I'm so surprised. I was so surprised to see it to begin with, because it is simply not on the level of design and composition that the rest of the building is, and I expressed that immediately. This is an appendage. It's an add-on. It's a bolt-on, and it's the beginning of a metamorphosis, as I see it. It will at some point need enclosures. It will have lighting, and these are all problems moving forward. I would be thrilled if what was proposed was an embellishment to what I consider to be some of Hammond Wilson's finest work. This is over time, this building will take on more significance, and this is just an addition that we would always review. We would review an addition on any building, and this is an addition. So it is important for planning and zoning to review it, but it's not a building within the period of significance. Those are my comments. We can keep moving.
All right, thank you, John. So just to summarize my thoughts, and hopefully I'm going to cover some of the thoughts of the commissioners as well. By using a prefabricated system, it's inconsistent with what the building is that's there, and it's inconsistent with the front entrance of the building, which is, I would think it was trying to mirror, and it is a system. By using the prefabricated, it allows for future items which are inconsistent then wouldn't be approved today if you were wrapping this in some sort of transparent material, whether glass or plastic or something along those lines. So those are kind of the concerns that we have, Andrew, with this proposal. And I think we would struggle to find this current version as a feasible application. So,
Okay.
So that's kind of where we're at right now.
So the nature of prefabricated components, and the scale and size of them are inconsistent with the building's architecture that the commission. And then, do you have any, the sections within the design manual that you can point me to that would give me guidance on these components that you're referring to?
That's a, maybe John can take that pop quiz on the,
Well, I won't do it at this setting, but I could do it next week with you. Aren't we meeting?
Yes.
Right.
thank you, John.
Okay.
All right, Andrew, are you comfortable with the feedback you've gotten and you think you understand what we've been?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe it's partially the way it's presented here today that implies some form of lesser quality, inconsistent with the texture of the building and its prefabricated nature. Just so you know, it is fully custom. It's a fully custom structure. The way these pieces are made are fabricated, or prefabricated, but it's all custom to meet whatever demand is. No different than the storefront that's used or the railing system and other components that are on there today, including the sunshades. I guess I'm not seeing how it's a lesser quality material.
Andrew, is there any
and how
examples that are currently used around Annapolis or near Annapolis that the commissioners could see?
I'm not sure. I could definitely investigate that and get some, additional imagery to you, and also maybe arrange some type of, ability for the commission to see one if needed to be, if it's local. But we could document that and sure to see if the quality is up to the standard that you would expect it to be.
Andrew, I'm not sure if the concern is whether it's lesser quality or whether it's just inconsistent with what's there now. I think that's, and I guess my hang up is I can't tell whether this is temporary or permanent. It looks like something temporary on the way to something more at some point in the future, which is a different and bigger conversation.
Right. And as far as you can't tell if it's temporary because of the scale of the items, the structural thicknesses of the profiles of the system itself, and how they're inconsistent with the other components. Is that, I guess,
they seem to be, they're definitely, they're thicker
Yeah.
to start with.
Brendan, I think you're onto something there, that it looks like a system that could be plopped down anywhere and not be part of a building.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is something that I would happily add to a beach house, but
Yeah,
this is a significant building.
and I get to confirm that, I don't think that this would pass muster for the front door. If they didn't have what the front door is there, would they add this over the front door? And I don't think that the answer to that is yes.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree with that. I see that for sure.
So
Okay.
all right. You does that help you understand kind of what we're thinking, Andrew?
Yeah. No, I think it's great. I think what we'll do is we'll revisit it and possibly come back once. I'll visit with John as well, and maybe possibly come back under another pre-application meeting.
That'd be great. I appreciate you coming to this and getting this feedback early on in the process. So we're happy to provide this feedback now so that we can get to a solution that we can all agree on that matches. So I appreciate you coming.
Absolutely. Thanks for hearing us, and appreciate your time.
Yeah, of course. And anyway, all right. Thank you, Andrew.
All right. Great. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right, so that brings us to our last item on the agenda, which is just administrative business, and we don't have any items. So unless John, you have anything else you wanted to add?
Well, I'm just glad that we had a quorum, and that you all came a little later. That is not administrative business, but I sure appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. It was on me. So thank you.
Yeah, appreciate you being flexible. Appreciate the applicants being flexible, and meet with us a little bit later so we could have a quorum and to move their applications along. So with that, I'll take a motion to close.
I make the motion to close the review.
Second.
All in favor? All right, thank you. That
Night,
concludes
guys.
concludes
All
our
right.
meeting.